What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be repainting / restoring this old Headin' Chuggin' Spook. Now, I've only redone a couple of baits like this before, so I haven't had a ton of experience with getting the old paint off. This paint, I started messing with it a little bit, and this paint looks like it is going to come off pretty easy with just some light sanding. Now, I have seen in some other videos and other forums that you can soak the baits in Windex overnight, and that'll help loosen up the paint, or you can use some like goof off or some paint stripper. Now, be careful using anything too harsh because it could melt the plastic or damage the bait, especially if it has more details in the bait, like if it has scale grooves and stuff like that, and like a gill plate and everything. This one does not. It is perfectly smooth all the way up and down both sides. So for this one, I'm just going to lightly sand off the paint until we can get a good base coat of white on there. Now, I'll have to find another bait that does have the scales, and then we can go through and do the same thing on another video. So if you guys have any specific baits you want to see repainted or older ones, let me know and I'll hit up the old eBay store and see if I can find anything. Now, this one's got the old hook ties on there that keeps the hook from going forward. I'm pretty sure I have some of these laying around that I'd purchased for a different project, so hopefully we'll be able to replace those, the screws, and our crusty hooks we have here. So first step's going to be is to getting off the old hooks, and I'm hoping they're going to unscrew without much of a problem. Another thing I should mention real quick before I forget is I'm pretty sure this blank is, or this bait is a plastic blank. If you are doing something that is old enough to be a wood bait, I'd be very careful using any sort of chemicals that might soak into the wood. This one being plastic, once we sand it up, I'll be able to wash it with some like Dawn dish soap or wipe it down with rubbing alcohol, whereas you want to be cautious doing that on wood baits because it could soak in and potentially mess up your future paint job. There we go, dehooked. Time to start sanding. I'm going to start this off with a piece of 220 grit sandpaper. Now, this is really, really rough, I think, for what we're going to be doing, so I don't want to go too hard with it. We're going to come back in with some finer sandpaper and clean it up. But if you use too rough of sandpaper, you're going to leave some really deep grooves and scratches in the bait. And we don't want to do that. We're just trying to knock off the paint. Okay, here is where we are so far. Looking pretty good. The mouth has definitely been the hardest part, so I think on future baits, if they are plastic bodies, we're definitely going to use some sort of paint stripper and like a toothbrush. What I'm going to do now is move on to a piece of 600 grit sandpaper. I think it would be better to step it up, maybe do something, I don't know all the grit sizes, but do something that is higher than 200 grit before moving all the way to 600 grit. These are the only couple that I have, so we're just gonna have to make it work. I'm basically going to do the exact same thing we just did, but with the 600 grit sandpaper. For anybody that hasn't done a lot of sanding before, we just did it with the 200 grit sandpaper, and we're moving on to the 600 grit. And the whole purpose of that is we're going to be sanding away the small scratches that are 200 grit sandpaper left in the bait, as you can kind of see there. So that is the reason why we go from 200 up to a higher number. And like I said, I don't have anything in between, so we're just going to jump straight from, I think it's 220 to 600. But basically sanding away our scratches on the first run of sanding. Okay, with the 600 grit sandpaper done, what I'm going to do now is take some water. We're going to go ahead and wipe down the bait, getting all the dust off and kind of seeing where we're at. That is looking pretty juicy. I got one more step with the sanding we're going to do, and we're going to be moving up to 800 grit sandpaper. Now I am using wet dry sandpaper, and supposedly using the wet dry sandpaper and sanding plastic while it's wet is supposed to help you give a smoother finish. I'm not exactly sure how that works on plastic. It makes sense on wood because it would help raise the grain and you get a better sand on that. Plastic, I'm not really sure, other than unless it's acting kind of like it's buffing it or something. Not 100% sure on that, but that's what I read on the internet, so we're gonna give it a try. Again, moving on up to the 800 grit sandpaper. All right, got the sanding done with the 800 grit. I'm just wiping it down here so we can take a look at how it's looking. Also, if you're buying a new bait, you can do the same thing. You don't have to take it all the way down to a clear blank like this. If it's a new bait and the paint is solid, all you gotta do is just do a light sanding to roughen up the paint. That way your new paint will stick. This one, however, the paint was all crusty and chipping and falling off. So I figured taking it down to the bare blank was the way to go for this one. I think that's all that's left to do now is to give it one final washing and wiping it down with some rubbing alcohol or something to clean off all the oils from my fingers being all over it. And then we got to come up with a paint job worthy of all that sanding and my fingers cramping. Now, I did not get the mouth as good. I'm hoping that doesn't come back to haunt me later. I was worried that if I sanded too much, I was going to kind of deform the mouth a little bit, and we might not get that classic perfect poppin' sound. The mouth is going to go back red regardless, so it's going to cover up the little bit of red that's still in there, and hopefully look juicy. I'm gonna get this bait cleaned up. I guess we'll put a screw back in the end so we have something that our helping hands can clamp to, and then we'll start laying down some paint. Okay, got the bait all cleaned up and ready for paint, and if something sounds a little bit different, it's because it's actually the next day. When I went inside to wash this bait up, I saw what time it was, and it was way past my bedtime. So that's how you know you enjoy your craft, when you lose all track of time. So the plan for our paint job here is to keep it really simple. I still want to kind of tip the hat to the old school paint job, but kind of modernize or brighten up the colors just a little bit. So we're going to keep it simple, but we're going to use a couple of fancy new colors. I do not want it to be transparent. So first thing we're going to be doing is starting off with a nice base coat of opaque white. With our base coat of white done, next color we're going to be doing is the Wicked Colors opaque bismuth yellow. Now what we're going to be doing is adding another color on top of this, which is going to be the highlight gold. Now on these Wicked Colors highlight colors, to get more of like a color shift or a sparkle effect, they say to layer similar colors over top of it. So we're going to do a gold over top of the yellow, and it should give us kind of like a nice color shift. So this yellow is very, very, very saturated, and we spray this over top of it, it's going to dumb it down a little bit. But first, with the bismuth yellow, the game plan here is I'm going to leave the very bottom of the belly white just a little bit, and then we're going to take that bismuth yellow, do on the side of the bait, and go ahead and bring it all the way up to the top, because we're going to bring some other colors in and fade it into it. Now with our bait looking like a banana, it's time to move on to the next color, which we're going to be doing a Wicked Colors Pearl Lime Green. Game plan for this one is we're going to try to leave the lower half of the bait yellow, and we're going to make the top of the bait completely green, and then have it fade into that yellow a little bit. And we will still be spraying that highlight gold over top of both of these colors. So it should look something about like that. So really, really subtle transition from green to yellow. I love it when the paints work together like that. I'm gonna clean out the airbrush, and then we will move on to our next color. For our next color, I'm wanting to darken up the back just a little bit with another green. Problem is, I don't have a green that I really like. All of them are too bright. So what I'm going to do is take some transparent tropical green and mix it with a little bit of brown, just to kind of dumb down that green a little bit, because I feel like this green would be way too bright and this brown would be too dark, but hopefully mixed together we can get the color that we're looking for. I'm gonna do more of the green than I am of the brown, because I don't want it to be too dark. So I think that's pretty darn close to what I'm looking for. Just kind of like a nice dull green, which I think is pretty close to what a lot of these old school paint patterns looked like. So we're going to take our custom green and we're going to go straight down the center of the back, and then kind of have that fade into our pearl lime green on the sides. There we go. Nice green fading down to all the way through yellow and into the white belly. Looking juicy. Going to hit this with the hairdryer real quick. We'll clean out the airbrush, and then we'll come back in and spray our Wicked Colors Highlight Gold. Okay, with our highlight gold, I'm going to spray literally the entire bait. We're going to give it a nice layer in that. Now, I have not sprayed it over something as dark as that green that we just did on the back, so that will be a new thing. And I guess we'll find out together if it makes or breaks it. Worst case scenario, I can mix up some more green and go back over it, but I think it should be okay. I am also going to hit the highlight gold on the belly of the bait where it's white. So pretty much everything. We're going to cover the whole bait in it, except for the mouth. We're going to be doing that red, of course, here in a little bit. All right, we're going to hit this with a hairdryer and then see how she looks. All right, hopefully this is showing up on camera for you guys. You can kind of see it shift from the green to the gold. Having trouble getting it to focus on the bait. It kind of shifts, so all the colors, the white, the yellow, the greens, the dark greens, all kind of have a little bit of that pearl. There you go, you can kind of see it where it's shifting to the gold. I'm sure once the clear coat's on and we get those nice close-up shots, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. But now it is time to spray the mouth of the bait in a nice red. I think the red that I'm going to be using is just some basic bright red. And I think what I'm going to do is carry a little bit of it down onto the belly of the bait. I'm not exactly sure. We'll kind of see if I accidentally get overspray. If I keep it just in the mouth, we'll keep it there. If I overspray a little bit, then we'll fade it into the belly. That looks like one non-oversprayed red mouth. I'm pretty excited that just worked. I always feel like whenever I can do that whenever I'm not filming, but then when I film, I always mess up a little bit. So it's nice that something actually looks clean on camera. All right, I'm going to hit this with the hairdryer, make sure everything's dry because we're going to be doing some stencil work next. And of course, clean out the airbrush. So I will be right back in a couple of minutes. Okay, we're going to do things slightly out of order. So this bait does not have like an eye socket for the eyes to go in. And I think the pattern we're going to do is going to kind of be based off of where the eyes are. So I don't want to do the pattern and then come back in and do the eyes last because I might have things off a little bit. And it's a plastic bait and I don't have the tools to be able to drill something out like that. So I actually have bought these eyes a while back for another project, which hopefully you guys will be seeing here soon, but these are flat ones. So the original bait had the flat, I think, painted on eyes. So we're going to use these bad boys, some nice bright red ones. And they're just like really flat stickers. And what I'm going to try to do on the original paint job, the eyes were higher up, kind of up in here somewhere. But since these are so big, if I had them both higher up, they would almost be touching up here at the top. And I don't want that. So what I'm going to try to do is go just perfectly on the side of the bait. Just trying to get it lined up with that front eye socket. I think that should do all right. It might, if it'll come off. Nope, okay, that's where it's going to stay. I was going to try to move it up a little bit, but it's going to stay right there. Hey, not too bad. I might bite it. I think we're spot on here, so I'm gonna go ahead and push this one down. Got our eyes stuck on, and I think they're lined up pretty good. So the next thing we're going to do is break out some transparent black paint. And I'm really torn here on what I'm going to do. I was going to we can either go like baby bass pattern or kind of frog pattern. Again, trying to keep it simple. I've been practicing my frog and I'm not very good at it. If I'm being pretty honest with you guys, I'm struggling with good frog patterns. You know, most of them, they'll have like those big black spots and then there's like a white line or yellow line that kind of borders it. I have trouble getting those lined up. So I think on this one, we're going to keep it really simple and just do some nice big black spots coming down the side of the bait and then do some along the back. So it's kind of like that old school frog pattern and I don't have to try to make the white ring around it. So I don't know if that's cheating, but I'll keep practicing my frog skills. I've actually got these really cool looking frog blanks from Barlow's Tackle. So I've got to get my frog pattern figured out. So I think we'll save like a really fancy frog pattern in the future for this blank since it already looks like a frog. That might help out with my my low-level frog painting skills. So this one, we'll keep it simple and old school and just do some nice big splotches going down the side of the bait. For that, I am going to use stencil, which this is one I've made. I don't have this one on my website yet, so if you guys want a pack of these in kind of different shapes and sizes, let me know. I'll get those on there. I think what I'm going to do is start on the back of the bait, and then we're going to probably start with one of these smaller ones right up front there. And then just kind of, I don't want to try to do them all at the same time, so we'll just kind of start with the little one and then work our way back. And then we'll do a couple splotches down the side. We might come back in and add some dots. We'll see how it's looking. There we go. I might try to do one more little piece right up here on the nose of the bait. It looks a little bit off to me, or that one being that small. So I think I'm just going to kind of try to do like half of one. There we go. I like the way that looks a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to hair dry that, make sure everything's stuck nice and good. And then we're going to bring out the car sponge. And I'm also going to put on a glove. That way the oils from my fingers don't mess up our bait, and I'll be able to hold the bait in place a little bit better for this next part. Okay, now we're going to go in and do some stripes kind of on the side. I don't want to get too carried away with this, and I've already gotten carried away with this. I've made so many stencils trying to make like the perfect frog stencil set that I could put together as a pack for you guys. But I'm still working on it. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations that you'd like for the frog. I also made another circle one because a lot of those frogs have like that big circle, so you could do like the white outline and then the black circle in the middle. But it's crazy hard to get them to line up right. So I might have to put some like little registration marks or something. Still working on that. And I think for this one, because I've got some like some more splotches, kind of like weird shaped circles. I think what hopefully will look better on this paint job is if we just kind of carry our vertical or our wide stripes and just kind of do a nice little line of them going down the side of the bait. And then we'll come back in and add a couple dots. So I'm going to start off with, I'm thinking one kind of right behind the eye right here. Okay, not too bad. I think it's looking pretty good. Well, what do you guys think? I think I got that one. I need to try to darken this up just a little bit more. If I can get this line back up. There we go. Hey, not bad, not bad. Okay, now I just got to remember which ones I used and in which order. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Oh, those almost touch. Oh no, now the bass won't eat it, guys. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. I do think that it looks a little bit strange, kind of up in here around the eye. I think I should have had that line just a hair closer. So I think to fix that, we are going to come back in and do some small dots. And I think with the dots, we'll do white first, and then we'll come back in and put another black dot on top of that. That way we still kind of get like that leopard frog or whatever those are called. Still kind of get that effect to it, but I'm going to try to keep it pretty basic and simple because I'm really happy with how clean it looks. I think it just needs a little bit more flair. I'm going to use the nail art dotting tool, and I'm going to go for the biggest one that I have. And I'm always nervous when I go to do these dots because it's easy to get carried away with it. So I'm going to try to keep it simple and not get too carried away. I'm going to go in with some white dots first. And maybe we can just kind of carry these down. Okay, I think I'm going to quit there. I feel like there's a nice even spacing around everything. So I'm going to hair dry this really well to make sure our white's completely dry. And then we'll come back in and do a smaller black dot right on top of all the white ones. All right, hair dryer one more time. And when I was drying it this last time, I saw our beautiful paint job we got going on here, and the belly is just so bland, and it's a top water bait. So I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit of our neon orange on the belly, just kind of up by the mouth, just to add a little bit more to the bottom of the bait. Okay, and we're also going to take a little bit more of our red and fade our red from the mouth into the orange right there. All right, that looks a little bit better. A little more action going on. So there you have it, one restored / repainted Headin' Chuggin' Spook Popper. I'm gonna get some clear coat put on this bad boy, and then we can reattach our hardware with some fresh hooks, and we'll come back and take a look at what it looks like all finished up.